right, so we're going to take a look at the Tristellar. Now, we looked at this before. It's an ITX case, but it is really unique. They've entered it into some design contests, and I know some people out there are going to be like, this is amazing. Some people are not going to like it so much because it's not traditional. But this video is for the guys who are a little less traditional. Now, the reason I wanted to check out this case is because it's a very unique ITX case. The idea here is compartmentalization. 3 different major compartments. On the top, your graphics card and some SSDs. And then in one compartment, you're going to have your cooling for your CPU and your motherboard. And then on the last one, you're going to have power supply and some 3.5-inch drives. Now, I know some of you guys are going to look at this and be like, that's not traditional, I don't like it, but I know some of you guys are going to really, really enjoy it. So first off, let's just go through the 3 different compartments, starting with the front here. You've got your USB, and I mean, nothing really fancy here, just your USB, microphone, audio ports, and all that sort of thing. Let's just go ahead and pull this off. So on the top here, spots for 3 drives, and you can also mount your graphics card up here. This one doesn't have it in place, but there'll be a bracket right here where you can mount your PCI Express graphics card, and then right over here on the back, you can install it there, screw it down, and then all your ports will be right here on the back. And it's big enough for triple slot cooling, graphics cards. This is the compartment for your motherboard and your cooling unit. As you can see here, we've got the ITX motherboard, and we have enough room for a 120 millimeter water cooling solution. This is the Captain 120 right there. And even though this is a very tall block, it will still fit just fine. So you have room for just about any block on the market. And also there is plenty of room in here for radiators. As far as air cooling goes, you'll have to use a low profile air cooling unit. So if you want to get, lots of overclocking, you'll have to get something like the Captain 120 or another 120 millimeter water cooling unit. Up in the front here, if you're not using a water cooling unit here, you can put a 120 millimeter fan right there, but you can also put a 92 millimeter fan right here in the front, have it pulling in air from the front and back over the components and out the back. So you have like a wind tunnel going through there. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at the graphics card compartment here. So on this side, as you can see, we have a graphics card in there mounted on a bracket, and the bracket feeds back down into the the area where the motherboard is and plugs in that way with a ribbon cable. And then again, we also have a 92 millimeter cooling fan right back here in the back, one pre-mounted in there. If you're using a graphics card in here, there's going to be a vent on the side so that the graphics card can breathe. It's not just going to be in here all by itself suffocating. It'll be able to breathe. And there's also some holes here in the back to allow the air to flow. I'm a little bit worried about airflow with some configurations, but with the the ventilation on the side, it should be okay. And then if you're exhausting out the back here, that should also help. On the back side of that, we have the 3 spots for SSDs or 2.5-inch drives, and these all have power and SATA that's been pre-run, so they just plug and play pretty much right in there. And if your motherboard supports hot swap, you should be able to configure that and just use these as hot swap if you like. Here's one that's already installed, and then those again, SATA on the back plugs in there and then goes over to the motherboard chamber. All right, let's look at the last chamber here. This is where the power supply goes, and all the cables have a bit of room in here to get smashed in. Now there is no real room for cooling over here other than the fan that goes onto the power supply, and that has the same sort of event that we saw on the graphics card. So the power supply is going to go right there. It's pretty snug. If you're putting the really large power supplies in there, you might want to take out this bay here, but it easily comes out. This is where your 3.5-inch drives go, and I'll turn it up to show you that in just a second. But if you're using a really large power supply, which I doubt you will be with the ITX rig, but if you are, you're crazy, you will have to remove this. So I'm going to go ahead and stand it up so you can see what goes in here. Right there, we have our 3.5-inch drives. And in the center right there, there's a spot for a low-profile optical disk drive. They haven't really given you a tray for 2.5-inch drives, but if you buy a 2.5-inch drive, if you know you're going to get this case and you get a 2.5-inch drive that has one of the 3.5-inch trays, you'll be just fine. Just make sure that the trays mount to the side so that your SATA ports will line up. Never get one that mounts in the center. That's just not going to be compatible with stuff. And we do have pretty much it. I guess if you took out some of these components, you could configure and mod things into this, but there are a lot of interesting options with this. As the first one's going to come, it's going to have pretty much everything's going to be covered, but they are making additional versions with like acrylic tops so that you can see your components, windows on the side. And I want to really see what the modding community is going to do with this. And I think this is the case that the modding communities probably going to like more than a lot of standard users because it can be a showpiece, you know? It looks like something out of freaking Star Wars, man. So let me know if you're going to get one of these, and if you're planning to mod it, please post pictures of your mods of this. I cannot wait to see what people in the modding community do. I know someone's going to make the Emperor shuttlecraft from Star Wars out of this thing. So that's the Tristellar. Freaking Star Wars, man.